Hello and welcome to another Franchise Hockey Manager 3 stream. My name is Adam. I'm the community manager of Franchise Hockey. With me, as always, is FHM producer Jeff, who is pictured on your screen. Say hi, Jeff.
Hey, everybody.
And we are back with something brand new. As you can see, as the title has alluded to you, we are going to do a new game starring the 1967 LA Kings. But to do that, we're starting in 1966.
Yeah, we just explain why we're doing this. We've made a lot of changes over the last since release. I mean, with the game we had started the Ottawa Senators, what was it, 91 or 92 expansion game early in the year. There's been quite a few changes to the game and to historical mode too since then. So we will probably do a wrap up next week of that and the Modern Leafs game that we also started. But last week we started a new game, new modern game with the Red Wings. And now we're going to do one with the Kings, a historical game with the Kings, only we're going to start right from the beginning, or actually a year before the beginning. We'll run through the 1966 NHL season, simulate that, and then change over to 67, at which point the Kings will appear. I'm going to switch into commissioner mode and take the job with the Kings as their general manager. And we will draft the Kings right from the beginning and probably move this historical game on along a little faster than we did the Senators game, because that took us quite a few months just to get to the end of the year and miss the playoffs anyhow. It should be a little easier to make the playoffs in this too. And the 67 draft is interesting because there were quite a few big names that were made available, and it was the first league's first expansion in I don't know how many years. 20, 25, no more than that, probably close to 30 years after being the quote unquote original six for several decades. So we'll just maybe do a quick run around the league before we get underway. The actual the league, this is 67, so this is the Leafs' big 67 Cup where they kind of won an upset. The Hawks were actually the big team this year. They led the league. Stan Mikita led the league in points, but wound up losing in the playoffs. A couple of things should mention. I've got a couple of mods installed. One, you can see well, not so much on the wings because it's pretty similar to the modern logo, but I've got the older logos here. That's a mod that is available in the Steam Workshop.
Yeah, and we did a previous one to show how to do that.
Yep, and it's fairly self-explanatory. It's all built into the game now, so you can get that. And the other mod I have downloaded is, you can see if I call up Leo Bovin here, and we've got historical uniforms as well. So that's the old Red Wings uniform. We've got the lovely gold Bruins uniforms from the mid-60s.
Those are sweet, let's be honest.
Not really.
Oh,
and so on that side, so that's the historical uniforms mod. It's in the workshop as well. It's really beautifully done mod with, I'm not sure if it's got 100% of the historical teams, but it has to be pretty close to it. It's really, really nice work. Definitely worth picking up if you want to play historical games. So here we are in 67. Just going to flip through the rosters quickly. Bruins were just sort of coming out of the dark ages. Obviously Bobby Orr, it's his rookie season, and they've got some guys who are parts of the big, they're sort of small, little dynasty they had at the beginning of the early 70s with Orr and Esposito and so on. McKenzie, Eddie Westfall, Teddy Green. Bernie Parent is actually the goalie. Wound up going to Philadelphia in the expansion draft. We'll see what they do in the game with him. The one thing that is missing from the Bruins, noticeably, is if I go to Chicago, Phil Esposito. The Esposito trade hadn't been made at that point. Turned out to be one of the best trades in Bruins history. Not so great for the Hawks. Fred Stanfield was also part of that, and he's still with the Hawks. So the Hawks, if they don't make a lot of moves, are going to be really ridiculously good in this game. So if they can hang on to Bobby Hull, they've still got Mikita, and they'll also have Phil Esposito. Stanfield pretty good. I guess probably only be a third line center for him at this point. Glenn Hall is still their goalie. They may not, if they don't lose him to St. Louis, they've still got him for a while yet. So the Hawks could wind up being incredibly strong in this game. Wings, Gordie Howe, don't have to say anything more about that. He's still there. I should say that when I set this up, I do have FHM development turned on. So Howe may not necessarily make it to 50, may not go to the WHA. Everything will develop independently. You won't necessarily be getting the players in the same, developing the same pattern that they did historically. So we may get the big seasons out of War a little earlier or later. You can see Paul Henderson still with the Wings. Andy Bathgate, I think one of his last seasons, he went to Pittsburgh in the expansion draft. I think played part of 1 or 2 years there. A Hall of Famer, but he's kind of winding down there with the Wings. Montreal is actually a lot of people. This doesn't get mentioned much, but if the Leafs hadn't won the Cup in '67, if Montreal had won that final, they would have actually had 5 Stanley Cups in a row in the mid '60s. It's not really remembered as well as the big '50s teams or the late '70s ones, but these were really great teams. Gump Worsley starting in goal, and Jean Beliveau still. He's 35 here, but he's still got a lot left in the tank. Henri Richard, Jacques Perrier. And a lot of good depth guys, Gilles Tremblay, John Ferguson. So definitely going to be a contender. And it's interesting. And the other thing about the Habs, can't see it here on the main contract, but if I go to the protected list, they've got Rogie Vachon, Ken Dryden. In addition to their starting goalies, Phil Muir, another fairly good starter in the 70s. All of these guys, young goalies in their system. So whether or not they can hang on to those guys for the expansion draft is a big question, and what they do with all the, they've got probably 4 or 5 legitimate starters there, and it's interesting to see what they decide to do with them. Rangers had a decent year this year, but they were not that good in the 60s. What?
Jeff?
Yep.
Jeff? Ratcast is posting in the chat that he lost the feed. It seemed to call up Twitch here. On mine. We might. Okay, I got it on my phone coming back on, but still having trouble on my. Okay. And I just sorry, I didn't want you to get going through a bunch of stuff and then we lose. And again, Twitch was supposed to be doing maintenance today, which might be part of the issue.
Yeah, I may have done something right at 7 there.
Beauty Creative says he has it.
Yeah, okay, I'm just hanging on a second here. I've got... okay, I had an ad when I tried to reload it. And,
sorry, I didn't want you to get going through a bunch of stuff and then we lose. And again, Twitch was supposed to be doing maintenance today, which what might be part of the issue here. See if I can get... there we go.
Okay, we good? Yeah, I may have done something right. Okay,
I got a black screen and kind of half loading things, but...
Is everybody else, is anybody else cutting out, or is it just Radcast? I'm wondering if the maintenance is affecting just him somehow.
I was having a few issues too, so... We'll cautiously go, but we never know. We might have to...
Yeah, okay, somebody, if anybody else sees it cut out on them, speak up in the chat. Where were we? Back to the Rangers. Hang on, I gotta change something around here. Okay, yeah, Rangers weren't that great in the 60s. They're just starting to turn it around, kind of like the Bruins did, and wound up having some good teams in the 70s. But the guts of the 70s teams are there. Rod Gilbert, Jean Rattel, Harry Howell, who won the Norris Trophy that year in 66, 67. It was the last time that Orr didn't get it for however many seasons in a row.
Okay.
Does it sound like we're okay? Yeah, okay. I think everybody's...
Yep. Yeah. Watching and things seem to be fine, so...
Yeah.
I'm sure the people watching this on the archive will be like, oh, man.
Yeah. And the Leafs. The last Stanley Cup they won was this year. Johnny Bower and Terry Sawchuk alternating in goal. Sawchuk is kind of a little past his getting fairly far past his prime at this point. Johnny Bauer's still fairly solid. Tim Horton, Dave Keon, all the legendary Leafs, Big M, Frank Mahovlich, leading a team. So just giving you that little bit of background. And I think I will fire it up now, and we will tear through this really quickly. I'll maybe stop at Christmas just to see, or January 1st, just to see how things are going, but it's going to blow through this really quickly.
Which is exactly what we want.
Yep, and we'll do a little bit more of this even in our game, just to move things along a little bit. Probably not killing off entire seasons like this, but we'll see how this is going in a second. Almost up to December 30th already. That's a nice thing about historical mode, with this, especially with the smaller leagues. You can move through it really quickly if you want. And yeah, not wild. No, actually, that's kind of a surprise. Montreal's doing really poorly. I did a few test games and they were never anywhere near this bad. Rangers doing surprisingly well. Chicago on top. Not that's big of a surprise. And Leafs doing reasonably solidly. I think that'll shuffle around a little bit in the second half. Take a real quick look at the leaders. Guessing we're going to see lots of Bobby Hull, Nikita. Bobby Orr, much better than he actually did in his rookie season. So he's broken out early, but yeah, Hull, Johnny Busek, Rattel. You can see, yeah, some good individual stuff. That's kind of why I'm guessing their teams are doing that well. But let's move it along again, and let's just run this up to the beginning of the playoffs. Which, and then we can go through it maybe series by series or day by day, and just watch the playoff tree, how that evolves, and the Leafs can actually do it again.
It's a pretty small playoff tree at this point.
Yep, all four teams. So end of the regular season, and we're going to get Hawks, Rangers, and Leafs, Bruins. So Montreal, surprisingly enough, kind of fell on its face this year. The last test I did before this one, they finished first in the league. So I don't know if they had injuries, or I'm going to take a quick peek to see exactly what went wrong with them. Yeah, kind of disappointing seasons from Richard and Beliveau. Seemed to be reasonably healthy, just didn't do that well this year. And Leafs in second, so Leafs, Bruins, Hawks, Rangers. Kind of a surprising finish to the season. I should take a look at the see where the leaders wound up for the season. Yeah, Bobby Hull winning Art Ross. Busek goals leader, Dave Keon with the assists. John Ferguson leading in penalty minutes, not that big of a surprise. And over on the goalie side, yeah, Glenn Hall, big season, not a big surprise there. 10 shutouts. Everybody else seems pretty far back from him. Looks like the Red Wings used George Gardner quite a bit this year. It's a bit of a surprise. And Roger Crozier was hurt or what?
Could have been. Or did they trade him? Or was it he's still having a little bit of trouble with my particular stream myself?
Okay, well, as long as, yeah, if anybody else sees it, just speak up in the chat. Yeah, no, Crozier and Gardner. Well, it looks like Gardner was at least hot at the end of the season. That may explain why he got a few more starts. That's if you haven't seen the game recently. The number there, you can see it right there, is the hot and cold status for the goalies. That will raise the baseline ability, ability of the goalies up and down a little bit potentially each game. There's a lot of variability into it, but generally better to start a hot goalie than a cold one, unless there's a huge skill disadvantage. And I've explained all of that. It's in the update notes for the last big update in the forum. If you want to take a look there and learn a little bit more about that. But let's see. No, I think what I'm going to do is play about a week at a time. And that's actually Hawks, Leafs, Rangers, Bruins. I had that wrong.
Okay. I'm still having a issue here at the moment.
Not able to see anything, or what's?
I'm just getting a white screen, but
I'll keep checking on mine, but it was looking last time I looked.
No, that's fine. I'm just letting you know.
Yep, I just want to make sure it's. Yep, it's still running on mine. Okay.
Good.
Anyhow, back to playoffs. Hawks Rangers final, and then the Rangers actually win the first game. So the Rangers get their first cup since 1940. Go up to next week. And tied 2-2. It's tempting to go in and watch the game, and the Rangers won the Stanley Cup.
That's surprising.
Yeah, big surprise. I mean, they weren't that bad in real life that year. I think they were third in the league. But the Rangers, I mean, they were not particularly good in this game, but turned it around.
Well then.
Okay, but now on to the part we're interested in. I'm going to run this to the end of the season. There we go, and it finished today. It'll do all the season updating, and we'll get a message in a few seconds, even quicker than I thought. 67 preview. So we've got all of the changes, the draft rules, and obviously the big thing is the expansion. So I'm going to cheat a little bit here. We want to take the Kings, so I'm going into commissioner mode, into available jobs, and right off the bat, we will take over the Kings. And get out of that. So I'm not tempted to cheat any. But you can see we ain't got nothing. No roster at all. I think the game will have started us with some personnel, but we'll probably want to sign a few more people in addition to that. But I'm going to get the expansion draft and the amateur draft back in these days, I guess, over with. So if I remember right, protected list going today, and we will do the draft tomorrow.
Excellent.
So 1967 NHL expansion draft. Let's see what we got to choose from here. And I should mention the first time the nice thing about this is we're picking first overall, so we get the absolute first crack at everybody's, which is a little unfair, but I'm not going to complain too much. And the first two rounds are goalies only, so I'm just going to switch the filter to only show goalies. And let's see who we got. Actually sorted by potential since we're looking long term. Jerry Cheevers, Hall of Famer, that stands out pretty prominently there. Cesar Maniago, good goalie for the Canucks and North Stars through the 70s. Eddie Johnston, Cheevers, him and Cheevers were 1-2 on the Bruins good teams. And then later GM of the Penguins. And various other guys. Gilles Villeneuve, kind of a low potential for him, surprisingly low. He was a good backup to Giasman for the Rangers in the 70s. But I'm thinking, although Maniago is 3 stars here right now, Cheevers is probably the better pick, I think. Eh?
I would think it's hard to pass up Cheevers.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we don't get the mask with them in the game, but... So we will take Cheevers. And take until the next human one. So just taking a quick look at what happened. Maniago, not surprisingly, second. Dennis Diordi goes to the Seals ahead of Johnston. Johnston to the Flyers, Bruce Campbell to Pittsburgh, and Roy Edwards from, I think he was on the Wings, or no, the Hawks to the Blues. And we got 5 guys left to choose from here. And one of them, former Jet, Joe Daly. So should we take him? Or future Jet, I guess he would be.
So Joe Daly, and who else is left?
Joe Daly, George Gardner, who we were just talking about, had a decent season with the Wings. Jack Norris from Boston, Carl Wetzel, who Montreal must have had some goalie injuries last year. He played a bunch. And Gilles Villeneuve.
Daly would be pretty young at the end, I think, right?
24, yeah. And he's got 2.5 star potential. Nobody else is more than 1.5.
I think he's probably the pick.
We'll go with Joe Daly there and let the other teams finish that out. And now we've got 18 rounds rather of picking skaters. So flip this around. Let's filter the skaters out. And let's see who made it onto the or didn't make it onto a protected list. Going by potential, top is Jim Pappin from Toronto, who actually did pretty well in the 70s playing with Makita in particular, and then Hull before he left for the Jets. Barry Ashby, Flyer defenseman, who was pretty good for a couple of years, wound up passing away from cancer, though, in the early 70s. That's Tommy Williams, not Tiger Williams. They're from the Bruins. John Ferguson, unprotected by Montreal. Gonna flip it over to current ability sorting and just see if there's anybody else. Fred Stanfield, who was historically in the trade with the Bruins, but the Hawks haven't protected him here. Johnny McKenzie, who's had a pretty rough year last year, but was really good in the big Bruins teams in the 70s. Chico Mackey, very solid Hawk. It's tempting to take early. Looking through this, what do you think? Forward or defenseman first?
I think you build a defense out myself, but that's...
Okay, so we got somebody the Kings actually took, I think, Terry Harper from Montreal. Gilles Marat, who's on the other side of the Esposito trade, going from Boston to Chicago, and then eventually I think he was shuffled around a bit through a couple of expansion teams in the 70s. Ed Van Imp, the greatest shot blockers of all time, wound up with the Flyers in the draft. Those are the 2.5 star guys. 2.5 star potential guys. Oh, Howie Young, probably the first real goon in the NHL. Only had 193 penalty minutes last year, but is capable of getting 200 or 300. Bob Bond, Leaf legend. He's played on a broken leg in that 67 Cup. Kent Douglas, another pretty well-remembered Leaf. Marcel Pronovo, Hall of Famer, but he's 37 at this point. So, let's see. I think we probably take somebody for the future, but who's got a fairly high rating right now. I think I'm going to go with Ed Van Imp first as a start off of Chicago, just to get us a solid defensive defenseman. We're probably giving up a little bit of scoring this way, but we'll see what's around at the next pick. So Ed Van Imp, first Kings skater. And the rest of the round, everybody takes forward, so we should probably grab a forward here. Kind of the expected names: Stanfield, Oliver, Johnny McKenzie.
I guess we should have looked at free agents before we started the draft, too.
Not really enough time to do it, though, because we're starting right on the first day, so we won't be able to sign anybody quite in time, I don't think. So I think I'm going to go with Jim Pappin here. Just as Gary Donor, he's the only 3-star potential guy left, so that seems like an obvious pick. And okay, yeah, the AI is actually doing really well at scooping up all the decent players. Wayne Rivers down here was like a 60-goal guy in the WHA, but never really did anything in the NHL. Britt Selby, former Calder Trophy winner, who with the Leafs. He's 22 at this point. He never really went anywhere in real life after this. Wound up being I think he retired in the like mid to late 20s and wound up being a teacher in Toronto. Selby is kind of an interesting choice. I think actually we're going to go with him, just on the theory that he might have a little unrealized potential and may work out better than he actually did in real life. So we got two wingers, and the AI went for all defensemen that time. So I think I'm going to go with Terry Harper here.
All right. In my draft, just looking around to see who was available and whatnot, since I had one going kind of the same time. Yep. Terry Sawchuk was available, but we also have Al Arbour is the first defenseman who shows up.
Alphabetically?
Yeah, I guess so. It was alphabetically.
Okay, and one other thing I should show you here is we changed something on the expansion drafts. Previously, it was showing you the stats for the upcoming season, which was obviously completely useless to you when you're doing the expansion draft. But now, if you choose a stats summary, that'll show you the stats from the previous season, so you can get an idea of how these guys did. And Ron Murphy is still out there, Eddie Joyal, Jerry Amon, Andy Bathgate's still on the list. But I'm going to go back to the info screen because I'm mainly thinking about potential here. Really need a center here. I wonder if there's a two-star guy. No, 1.5 all the way down. Joyal had a good season last year, so he might be worth thinking about. But we've got a bunch of guys who didn't play much last year. I'm just trying to getting the Jim Johnson it's even the year before. Bob Leiter with the Bruins. None of these guys have played in the NHL in a couple of years. Leiter was okay with Atlanta, and a little later on in the 70s, Brian Campbell, who was a pretty decent WHA guy. Jim Johnson, don't remember that well. I think the best thing to do is to go with Campbell because he's the youngest of the three of them, and he's got the same potential. So, and I think the Kings actually did take him in the real draft, or eventually he wound up being a King at one point, one way or another. And we've got a full first line, so let's just go with the best player available here, which is probably Gilles Marat, as bad as he was in that trade with Bruins and Hawks. Still a decent middle pair defenseman. And I'm hoping, good. Gary Dornhofer is still around. Went to the Flyers in the draft and was a Hockey Night in Canada broadcaster for a little while after he retired.
Okay.
And I think it was right before Don Cherry came in. And I'm gonna start looking for guys in order of ability. Wayne Hillman is there, but he's got a torn elbow ligament and had fairly late in the season, so that's a little iffy.
Okay, we have a question from Lactose1234.
Yep.
He says, missed the first couple of picks. Who did we take?
Go right down and show you. Jerry Cheevers was our first overall. Joe Daly backup. And then the first skaters picks, Ed Van Emp, Jim Pappen, and might as well just review them all. Britt Selby, Terry Harper, Brian Campbell, Gary Dornhofer. And starting by current ability, problem is the only guys with 2 stars left are injured. Gary Doak, pretty good defenseman. Well, like pretty good third pair defenseman. Oh, but I see the guy I want to take. Future Canucks captain. He's 30 years old already here, but I know he's got good leadership ratings. Orland Kurtenbach. And Kurtenbach, that was a right wing. We need a left wing and another defenseman.
I will not make fun of your Vancouver picks.
I only took the one so far. Now, is that Jay Watson, Jim Watson, or Jimmy Watson? That's Jim Watson. If it was Jimmy Watson, the guy who was with the Flyers, I would have taken him. And D. Cherry here is Dick Cherry, Don's brother. Not actually Don, but I think if I'm not mistaken, let me just sort this. No, it looks like Grapes isn't exposed in the draft. Maybe a free agent. We'll have to look out for him. Okay, so actually another guy we should grab here. Well, Claude Provost. He's in his 30s, but still one of the best defensive forwards ever. I'm going to grab him just as a penalty killer, I think. And then we should take a defenseman next. And the AI is not touching the two injured guys. Oh, we got Alan Stanley, future Hall of Famer, and was part of that 67 Leafs team, but he's 41 years old and down to 1.5 stars now, so he hasn't got a lot of time left, I don't think. I got Glenn Sather in there. I have to see if he is available in a round or two. But I think I'm going to go with the injured guy, Wayne Hillman, future Winnipeg Jet in the WHA, if I remember right.
Well, it's hard to argue with you on any of this.
Any of the Jet stuff. But I think we'll go with Sather in the third round just because, hey, Glenn Sather. He was a pretty good third-line grinder back in the day. And Bob Leiter's still hanging around as a center, so I will take him, knowing he's going to turn out, well, hoping he's going to turn out reasonably well. Oh, well, Brian Hextall Jr. is in there too. Oh, Andy Bathgate. I got to take Andy Bathgate because my dad played hockey with Andy Bathgate when they were kids. Road hockey back in the north end of Winnipeg in the 1940s when they were...
I was going to say solid Winnipeg guy.
Yep, solid Winnipeg guy. And according to my dad, back in those places, they didn't actually have pucks. They would use frozen horse droppings as the puck. Not sure if I really believe that, but it's a good story. Probably need a couple of defensemen. Moose Vasco, a good veteran from the Hawks. Seems like a good choice. I'm not seeing any other names that jump out at me. Now let's grab one more defenseman here. Jean-Guy Talbot's there, but he's a little on the older side. We've got a fairly old group of defense right now. Looking for an alternative. Ken Block, decent WHA defenseman, but not really ever any good in the NHL. Irv Spencer, don't remember him much at all. Jean Gauthier, I'm going to deliberately stay away from him because there's a story in Don Cherry's book about him. Gauthier was, when Cherry was running Rochester Americans as an independent minor league team, he had to sign a bunch of his own free agents, and somebody recommended Gauthier to him, but he said only sign him told Grapes only sign him for half a season. And Cherry naturally figures, well, you don't sign guys for half a season. That's nuts. I'll give him a full year deal. Guy played until Christmas, had a back injury, never played again. And
that's quite surprising.
Yeah. Or, well, maybe back injury should be in quotation marks. Actually, I'm going to go with Talbot. He's a little older, but we can try to grab some younger free agents if we're looking for defensemen. We still got the entry draft coming too. But the rest of the way, I think we should, or at least for now. Yeah, we got 6 defensemen, so we should be looking for 12 forwards, so I can take forwards the rest of the way. And we're running a little thin on those. Michel Dufour, don't really remember anything about him. I think we'll mainly look for potential at this point. Yeah, it's getting really thin. Alain Caron. Tom McCarthy, not to be confused with the other Tom McCarthy that played in the 80s. Was pretty good Bruin for a couple of years, but he's had gone downhill pretty badly by this point. Good.
I was gonna say, Lagos1234 says in the chat, my aunt dated Derek Sanderson back in the 70s.
Oh God, Derek Sanderson in the 70s. Well, don't ask him if he remembers it because he probably doesn't.
I was just gonna say maybe we should do sorting by age and see if we can find some younger guys who maybe can help us too.
I think I'm going to take Billy Inglis here. He's 24. Wound up coaching the Sabres for I think relieving Scotty Bowman for half a season or so around 1980. I'm going to take Larry Mickey just because I saw him in an old-timer game once. Seems as good a justification as any. And is that 120? That's 120. We're done. So let's take a quick overview of what we've got on the roster. Not too bad. Cheevers and goals is obviously going to help a whole bunch. Defense is pretty solid. I mean, I'm just comparing this to, remember when we started with that 91 Senators game, it was all 1.5 stars, and this time around we're, defense is 2.5. So you can see the talent pool is a lot bigger then. Probably could use a left wing if we can pick one up. Have to pad that out a little bit. Oh, did I? A couple of these guys aren't signed, I don't think.
Well, we'll need to check free agents too, because I think there's some guys there we should maybe look at.
Actually, I'm just trying to see what's... Yeah, I've got 18 players. How many? I must be counting wrong. And when is... I'm just going to check when the draft is coming up. July 10th. So we got a week here to look for the free agents.
Lacos1234 says Morsat and Van Imp as a top pairing defense is not that bad.
Yeah, and I'm not going to cheat by taking the top guy in the free agent pool, Tony Esposito.
What?
That's I think he was just coming out of Michigan Tech that year, so I
think it's perfect time to pick him.
No. Well, we already got Cheevers, and we got the first overall pick in the draft, so that's giving way too much of an advantage. But I will sign. I will sign Bill White because he's the Kings actually did sign him this year, and he's going to be an excellent defenseman. Or I'll try to sign.
There's some guy named Lars Erik Soderberg down there. I think we should maybe take a look at too.
I know you're going to bring a Swede into the league in '67. It's kind of radical.
Absolutely. We're the LA Kings. We should be radical.
Okay, I'm going to give White a really nice offer, about $8,000 a year more than he's asking for. 30 instead of 22, just to make sure we get him, because the Kings really did sign him in '67. So only fair that we get a shot at him here.
There's also another goalie a little ways down we might want to consider as a depth guy. Dave Dryden.
Yep, let's go through this position by position. Maybe do one or two of each. So goalies first. Not going to do Esposito because that's too easy. Dave Dryden. Gary Simmons. This guy was my nemesis when I was a 9-year-old. I think, yeah, a 9-year-old collecting I think it was a 77, 78 O-Pee-Chee hockey card set. I could not get Gary Simmons' card. Took me like 2 months of looking for it, buying packs, trading with people, before I finally got one. Finally completed that set. So I'm
Well,
just
it's not
gonna.
really
I'm
his
gonna.
fault.
Doesn't matter. I'm going to refuse to sign him in this game just out of spite for that. Uh, but yeah, I think the other, the alternatives are, besides Dryden, are really Wayne Stevenson, who's going to be good, but is only half a star now. Les Binkley, who's 33, pretty solid. Ernie Wakely's down there too, but I think you're right. I think Dave Dryden's probably the logical choice. So 25 years old, 1.5 stars and 2.5 potential. I'm not going to offer him too much more than he's asking for. Give him an extra 1,000. Because bear in mind, the other teams are going to be competing for these people too.
Yeah.
We made one offer to a defenseman, Bill White. Oops, just one defenseman. And Dennis Kearns, future Canuck star. So laugh at me all you want. I am going to sign him, and I think we'll take Schuberg too. Mainly, I think we're going to try for young guys and the free agents. There's quite a few fairly big names down there. Bob Plager, Carl Brewer, who I think had gone back to being an amateur at that point, wasn't, because he took a few years out of the NHL. But we'll go with the Swede just because you want him. Hopefully I'm bumping these offers up enough that we can get all of these guys, but we'll see. And what do you think about 4 forwards maybe? So we're still going to be getting some guys in the draft. Oh, Andre Lacroix.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Oh, actually,
a little bit of depth is never a bad thing.
Yeah, one guy we should sign, Bob Barry, because he was their king and was their captain for a few years before he wound up going into coaching. And yeah, it's all pretty much 1.5 stars and down here. Frank St. Marseille, I think he's 27. That's a little on the longer side. He actually did go to the Kings in real life. But Simon Nollet, who was a pretty good flyer and then first captain of the Kansas City Scouts, I think I'll grab him. You can see when I'm doing that, I'm bumping the offers up a little bit. And Andre Lacroix, who was never much in the NHL, but was probably one of the top 2 or 3 WHA players of all time. I think these are all-time leading scorer. And wants kind of a bit of money, so we'll see if we get him. Maybe, maybe not. And one more. Probably somebody who's really on the young side. Oh, is that who? Yeah, J. Bob Kelly, Battleship Kelly. Because it's going to get rough in a couple of seasons. They're not quite into the goon area yet, but we should have at least one tough guy in the system.
Now, I don't know much about him, so can you give me a little bit of background?
He was actually a guy who I'm surprised he's even in the game at this point. Another Don Cherry story there. He had been sort of kicking around the minor leagues and was this, mostly as a guy who was just fighting. But it turns out he could play a little, and Grapes, that same year he was managing Rochester when he was looking for free agents like John Gauthier, who I mentioned earlier. Kelly was recommended to him too. He signed him. Turned out Kelly could play really well. Had a great, I think it might have been, no, I'm not sure if it was his first year in the AHL or not, but was one of Cherry's best players, and wound up getting an NHL contract from the Blues the next season after basically being on the verge of almost being out of hockey. So Jerry pretty much saved his career, and went on to become pretty well-known tough guy through the mid '70s. Which considering it's the mid '70s, that's saying something considering all the other guys that were out there. But he could play and he could fight too, so he might be a good guy to have around for us. So let's advance this. Should probably take a look at the personnel screen, see if we're reasonably happy with that. We don't need more than the four coaches in, or 4 scouts rather, since it's historical mode.
No, but we should make it have enough coaches.
Yeah. Thinking, I mean, there wouldn't be a ton of coaches in this era, but we definitely need somebody with a good prospects rating. And okay, yeah, these guys just aren't very good trainers. The 2 of them we've got, they're pretty okay at the other stuff. Good coaching prospects rating. Probably need somebody with good defensive skills. And funnily enough, both of them are decent with goalies, so we don't have to really worry about that. Oops. Let's see what we've got free agent-wise. See if we can find the best prospects guy possible, with preferably good combination of other stuff. First guy looks okay. Oh, this guy looks Matt Molitor. Looks pretty good across the board. I will grab him, and I think I'll try to prioritize prospects for another guy, but I want somebody with good defensive skills. Here we go. Oh no, he's can't do that. Nathan Aston. Whoops, I didn't just... Okay, good. I was worried for a second there. I hired another head coach. Don't want that. I'm actually going to dump the 2 coaches we've got, just because their ratings aren't that spectacular. It's going to cost me a little bit of money.
Short-term pain for long-term gain, right?
Yeah, big $5,000 down the drain. I think we can live with that.
$5,000.
Yeah.
How are we ever going to get over that?
2 decent goalie coaches here. One's a little better than the other, but the best one is 70 years old, so he's probably only going to last a season. I'm going to grab the slightly young... Whoops, nope, he's a head coach. Can't do that. We will go with the old guy. Nope, wants too much money, so that isn't going to work. We will go with the 46-year-old American. Nope, it also doesn't want to work with us. Might have to go down here a little bit. Wait, Nathan? Oh, I think I just rehired the guy I fired. So it turns out we should have kept him. Sorry about that, buddy. And we'll take one guy with good physical numbers. That's training, skating, and yeah, related stuff. Nope, he doesn't want to. Okay, I think that rounds out the coaching staff nicely. Since we're going to move this along fairly quickly, I am going to turn the training on and scouting on assistant, just because we don't really have time, aren't going to have time to go back in frequently during the game. And we are still got a few minutes left here, so let's just quickly take a look at the other expansion teams and enjoy the nice, lovely circa 1960s logos. There's us. North Stars actually got Cesar Maniago, who wound up with them for real.
We did get a trainer, right?
Oh,
So
good
I'm
point.
gonna
Got to hire.
CS High 312 brings that up in the chat.
Yep. Thanks for reminding me. I will grab one of them. I think we might have one already in the lineup. But just take a quick look there. Stars look not particularly threatening. Seals, not bad. A couple ex-Hawks, Nestorenko and Mackey on Diordi and goal. Yeah, Oakland doesn't look too bad. Flyers are a bunch of veteran defensemen. Not that awful. Pittsburgh gets kind of rough. All defensemen near the top. A few. The Wally Boyer who was with them real life. I think Ab McDonald was as well. Yeah. Blues, who went to the Stanley Cup this year. The other thing we should mention, the way they set up the playoff format these years. We're in the West Division, and the West Division is all expansion teams. And it was a West versus East final, so there's at least one expansion team guaranteed to get into the final, and hopefully it'll be us. So we actually have a shot at the finals in the first year. And Blues, not quite as good as they really were. And I think that is the end of it. There's the Leafs. Back to the Bruins and just get back to us and check the personnel screen. No, we did not have a trainer.
All right. Well, thank you to CSI 312 for bringing that up. Anyone look interesting?
Gonna go with a guy with a good player management rating that's useful for the trainers. Daddy doesn't want to sign with us. Oh, I got a guy from California here. Let's grab him. Who also doesn't want to sign with us.
How does a guy from California not want to sign with us? That doesn't even make sense.
Okay, that's odd. I think there's something wrong with the trainer settings here. It's not letting me hire him. I think we may have to wait until the second season to get one. That's
Any chance that we've gone over our budget or something?
I don't think so. No, staff payroll is way, way, way under budget. I think that might be a little bug there. We'll have to take a look at that. But I will leave that for now and sign out. Or actually, I will do it the cheating way. So I don't want to go through the season without a trainer.
Put someone on the team.
Yep.
He's signed to a contract for $1,000 a year.
$1,000. You think that's reasonable? There we go. And we'll give him a 1-year contract and let him renew it next year. Okay, there we go. Hacienda Heights, California. Anything interesting in the news? Just our welcome to LA message. So now I will move ahead a couple of days, and we're running low on time here, but let's see how everybody's doing contract-wise. Should see a lot of free agent movement in the next couple of days. Everybody seems... Okay, here we go. Now we get the competition coming in. Red Wings want Dennis Kearns. So let's up our offer for him a little bit. Andre Lacroix, Chicago's going after him. A couple of steps up there.
Have to keep fighting for everybody.
Yeah, Lars-Erik Schuberg wants to go to the wings.
Oh, the wings. Of course he wants to go to the wings.
And Bill White, who's kind of our key free agent, and the Hawks, who the Kings wound up trading to later, trying to sign him already. I'm going to go up quite a bit here, so... Oops. Meet demand first. Take it up to 40. See if you want to match that, Chicago.
Bring it on.
And at least go after Bob Berry. Got lots of money here, so I'm just gonna get in a bidding war with everybody. Kearns likes ours. Okay, J. Bob Kelly, first guy to sign with us. So we got our good. Schuberg is happy. Bill White. And we get Bill White. Okay, there's our key defenseman there. And probably the guy we're going to build around defensively. We lost Andre Lacroix to Chicago.
Done.
Did get Simon Nollet. And the Leafs are going after Schuberg now.
Did
Take it up to 19, but I'm not going over 20 for him.
Did the goalie sign?
Not yet. Dryden hasn't gotten back to us yet.
And what about the other guy, though, whose name escapes me? Esposito? Was that who it was?
Tony Esposito?
He didn't want to sign?
He signed with St. Louis.
That's interesting.
And we lost one free agent. We didn't get Lewin. We didn't sign Lacroix, so we should probably try to grab a different center. Not a lot of them out there. Ron Houston, Jim Wist. Fran Huck. I'm going to sign Fran Huck just because I like the name Fran Huck.
Hard to disagree with that logic.
And I think we'll just get this up to where we're going to do the entry draft. And Dave Dryden did sign with us. So there's our goalie.
Excellent.
And we also got Dennis Kearns and Bob Berry. So far we've only lost one of the free agents we went after. Not too bad. How many days have we got to the entry draft here? It's the 10th until it's tomorrow. And Fran Huck does sign with us, and I think that might be the last of our outstanding free agent offers. Oh, we got Schuberg still trying, hopefully going to get him. But that's what the roster looks like as of draft day. So, a fair amount of depth, some guys who can score. Sorting by age. Actually, age-wise, we're really not that bad. We've only got 5 guys age 30 or older. And none of them are really key people. Most of the top guys are in the late 20s, so pretty good. But coming up next, I think we're going to have to do this next week because we're running low on time. Amateur draft, just a quick preview of what's out there. 67 was not a fantastic draft. Serge Bernier, good WHA player, never really did much in the NHL. Bob Murdoch, solid defenseman. Keith Magnuson, likewise. But it's probably going to be in the 68 draft before we start seeing anybody really worthwhile. And we've got the 4th overall pick, so I'm not expecting a ton of immediate help out of the draft.
There's always hope.
So I think we will leave it off here. and we will continue with the draft next time. Do the draft, get through the preseason, probably play a half season or so really quickly just to see how we're doing, and then if we've got if we're a playoff contender at that point, maybe pick somebody up the trade deadline and make a run to the playoffs, and who knows, maybe the finals this year.
Okay, I gotta ask just before we do wrap up, who's coming up in the draft? Do we have any difficult decisions?
In this draft, not a whole lot to decide to choose from. Basically, I think we're probably going to wind up picking somebody, Cliff Coral, sort of career second or third line guys.
Well, maybe we'll have a Twitter poll for you to help us decide then.
Yeah. I'm not sure if it's even interesting enough for a Twitter poll. Maybe the 68 draft. That might be more interesting.
Well, we could see.
Yep. Okay, so I think we'll leave it off from here. Adam, if you want to sign off.
All right. Thank you for tuning in to another Franchise Hockey Manager 3 streams. We normally stream every Wednesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/OOTP Developments. This is a little bit different because we streamed on Thursday night. Our streams are archived on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/OOTP Developments. We have a Twitter you can reach, which is at Franchise Hockey. You can get to us on Facebook, which is facebook.com/Franchise Hockey Manager. If you want to come talk to us on our official website, you can do so by coming to ootpdevelopments.com and clicking on that community button you see. I think that's about it.
That's about it. Yeah. If you haven't checked in the last couple of days, we did have a major patch or update come out last week, and then did a smaller hotfix to it this week just to fix a couple of issues. It looks like at least one of those fixes didn't work out the way we wanted it to, so we're probably going to be looking at doing another one, but we'll take at least the weekend, see if anything else comes up, and then probably a very quick fix out next week, because other than that, that's probably going to be one of the end of the updates for FHM3, so the game will be as is from this point forward, and we'll be moving to FHM4 development. I actually just dumped about 3 long documents onto Sebastian Malta yesterday of various new things we want to add, so getting an early start on that this year, and the game will be even bigger and better next year. But thanks for watching the show, and we will be back again next week. I think wrapping up our 2 old games, the Leafs and the Senators, quickly in the start of the show, and then we'll move back on to the new Wings game we started last week, and see if we can rebuild the modern Red Wings. So thanks for coming out, and we will see you in a week from now.